Good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here, all of you. As Katrina, mentioned, I'm Andy. I represent the Singapore Economic Development Board, uh, and I'm the regional director for the Nordics at the EDB. So see me as that point contact for all things related to Singapore out here in Europe. Yep. So maybe I give a quick overview about the EDB and what we do before I dive into the subsequent parts of my presentation. So the EDB, we are a government agency under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and we are responsible primarily for two things. The first, we are responsible for Singapore's industry development strategy. So what that means is, see us sort of like the architects of Singapore's economy. We are the ones that plan out which are the sectors that Singapore should double down on and should grow for the next 10 to 20 years. And we then, work with partners and decide on the strategy as to how to go about growing the industry. So typical industries that have been associated with the EDB tends to be the growth of our biopharmaceutical sector, the growth of our petrochemical sector, our semiconductor sector, and I mean more recently, our AI sector together with other government agencies as well. So that's one role we play. The second role is in what we call investment promotion, where we work with foreign businesses to help them land a solid footing in Singapore, leveraging Singapore as the gateway for their business expansion into Asia, as a commercial hub, as a production base, or as an innovation node. Yeah, so those are the two roles that we play. And cumulatively, the EDB accounts for sectors that contribute about 40% of Singapore's GDP today. Now, in terms of how EDB comes in to help companies, is typically in one of three ways. We come in to provide you with information that you might require on, doing business in Singapore. Of course, we don't do this in silos. We do this with close partners such as Business Sweden, such as ACE, to help you really lend a good understanding of what it takes, to succeed and to grow your business from Singapore. Second thing, we come in to provide connections. Because we are the external facing arm of the Singapore government, we are in a very good position to connect you with stakeholders from within the Singapore government. These could be regulators, research institutes, universities, you name it, we can help with facilitating these connections. We are also in a good position to connect you with other private sector parties, other companies that you may want to speak to, engage with, so long as there is a mutual interest to connect. And then the third is in the area of incentives. So where a company's plans for Singapore aligns with our industrial development strategy for the sector, we are happy to come in to co-share the risk of investment by way of awarding incentives. These could be in the form of tax incentives, tax credits, financial grants. We have a slew of incentives available to support companies on their journey. And it really depends, on what the company is looking to do. And we can always have a discussion then on what might be the relevant tool to support you on that journey. Yeah. So that I thought is in a nutshell of what the EDB does, how we go by helping companies. And from here, I thought to just give you three simple reasons of why you should consider Singapore as that launchpad and window into your growth in Asia. These are some of the points that have already been touched on by Cassandra, as well as colleague from ACE. So, don't want to rehash too much of what has been shared. Yeah, but Singapore is centrally located at the heart of Asia, which is going to be there. And Southeast Asia in particular is going to be the fourth largest economy by 2030. You've heard that earlier. But why is it so uniquely positioned as a gateway? Firstly, because we have I would say, highest concentration of HQs, headquarters, actually in Asia. So what that means is that, we are a very small place. Compared to Sweden, for example, Sweden is 616 times larger than Singapore. Population-wise, we are not too far apart, actually. We are at 6 million. Sweden is about at 10 million. Yeah. But what that means is a lot of companies, organizations are clustered very closely, and that makes it for a very conducive environment to just walk across the street to explore collaborations with parties that you want to connect with. So that is one thing that makes Singapore unique. The second one is we are also a global reference market for open innovation. We have, as a Singapore government, created a lot of sandboxes, a lot of living labs that we invite companies to then participate, co-innovate, and co-develop solutions together. And that is where, a lot of globally leading solutions get first deployed, and scaled from Singapore. A lot of companies also have their open innovation outfits in Singapore, and that makes it very conducive, for you to get connected with some of these innovation arms of the companies to get, I would say, explore collaborations that you can explore with them. For example, we have P&G GrowthWorks, Procter and Gamble, that has one of their GrowthWorks outfit, again, doing co-innovation from Singapore. Johnson and Johnson has their J Labs in Singapore, another external open innovation arm where they crowdsource and tech scout for interesting technologies in the region, that can be deployed internally within their product development roadmaps. So those are all opportunities that you can also explore when tapping on Singapore as that launchpad. And then the third is again a continuation, co-innovation opportunities that these corporates actually embark on. So, for example, you see case studies of Hyundai, Roche, and Seagate. I also wanted to share that companies like Amgen has their golden ticket, which is again a sort of like open innovation challenge, launched in Singapore as well. And this year, they actually awarded their golden ticket to a Singapore-based biotech working on new advanced therapeutics. So what this means is that there are all these different platforms that have been created, both by the Singapore government as well as the corporates, that startups and scale-ups can participate in and can, pitch your ideas, your solutions for, and therein lies the opportunity for you to scale, bring that idea to commercialization, and then scale it from Singapore. Apart from the physical side of market access, Singapore's strength also lies in our extensive free trade agreement network, which at this point in time covers over 85% of global GDP. And we do have a free trade agreement with the EU. So this is where it actually eliminates a lot of, I would say, tariff costs, when it comes to transacting and moving of goods flow between one country to another. But I thought what is interesting for the companies here to also recognize is that with the free trade agreements that we have, it also allows for expedited access and special concessions into some of the regional markets that you may want to access. One good example here is this, where if you were to set up your businesses in Singapore, you can tap on Singapore's free trade agreement with our neighboring countries in Southeast Asia, and that actually confers you benefits such as, concessions when it comes to foreign equity ownership that is actually required in many of the regional countries, for example, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, Vietnam. So this is where you actually have an unfair advantage of sorts when you were to coordinate and manage your business out from Singapore, leveraging on the benefits that these free trade agreements can give. Another one, when it comes to market access, is in tapping on Singapore's free trade agreement networks. You can also have enhanced opportunities to participate in the public procurement, process of some of the signatory countries that we have free trade agreements with as well. Yeah. So overall, the free trade agreements have to lower the procurement thresholds that you need, to participate in, let's say, New Zealand or Australia's, procurement tenders. And that again makes for a add proposition when managing your business from Singapore. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, and this is something that the earlier two speakers have touched on as well. We have an enabling innovation ecosystem. Today, fourth in the world when it comes to leading global innovation. But I thought to highlight here that what we really want to emphasize is really that ecosystem play that allows for you to really meet with partners across the value chain that you can continue to work with as potential customers, as potential collaborators. And we know today that apart from just having a critical mass of tech companies to build up an ecosystem, talent is very important, right? A lot of companies today make decisions on where they want to set up operations, not based on just where they can find good incentives and government support. Because without the talent needed to sustain their activities, the operations would not be able to sustain for the long term. And this is where Singapore continues to double down on efforts to be an attractive hub for talent to come to live, work, and play. And this is where, in ensuring that we can attract the best and brightest, you can also then have access to the best and brightest to build up your teams for long-term operations here. Now, of course, this is enabled in part also by a lot of government support for the ecosystem. So, not many people know, but Singapore actually invests about 1% of our GDP every year into R&D. And so we do it at always in a 5-year tranche. So from 2021 to 2025, we've invested about 28 billion Singapore dollars into public R&Ds. That amounts to about 18.6 billion euros over 5 years. And we are now at the stage where we are concluding the 5-year tranche planning for 2026 to 2030. And so, how companies can then tap on these monies is in one of few ways. You collaborate and do research projects with our universities, you collaborate with our research institutes, you participate in some of the national platforms that we have already put in place, such as those that you see on the right side of the slide. Yeah, these are all platforms, test bits that we have put together, to make it easier for companies to come and do collaboration works. And basically, this helps to also then ease the process, reduce friction when you want to meet with potential clients, because these are already convening points where parties with the same problem statements, can match demand and supply. Demand in terms of problem statements, supply in terms of solution providers. Yep. So some of the monies that come from that we have put aside for public funding goes into programs such as the ones you see, the National Semiconductor Translation and Innovation Center, where we are looking to pre-build a facility that allows companies to, do R&D without incurring much capital cost. National Robotics Program, again, for you to meet with potential customers that may want a robotic solution for their operations that you may be able to provide. And the third, in terms of the Nucleic Acid Therapeutics Initiative, which again provides the hardware, the labs, wet labs needed to undertake some of these R&D works, which helps to reduce capital outlay. So that is on enabling innovation ecosystem. Then coming to my last point on having a favorable environment to live, work, and play. I mean, we recognize that when you make decisions, commercial decisions, of course, the pros and cons of, whether it makes sense from a business perspective, ROI perspective, those are important. And this is where, Singapore tries to be as business friendly as possible, having a relatively low corporate tax rate, as well as favorable, income tax, as well as a dividends tax regime as well. Yeah. So all of these hopefully can make for a favorable business environment to allow you to come and set up your businesses. But beyond that, we know that, there are also a lot of, I would say, intangibles that comes with working and living in a particular location. So for Singapore, we like to emphasize the value add and the value creation we can bring to businesses. And I think one of the ways that has really showcased itself was during COVID, where, when most parts of the world was actually in lockdown, Singapore made a very deliberate decision, to keep our ports open. What that means is that, goods flow can continue to come through Singapore, which is today a very important supply chain node globally for many sectors. And that has actually earned Singapore the reputation of being a catch-up port. Yeah, where ports in LA, in Rotterdam, in Shanghai, where there are massive delays in getting your shipments out of these cities. If you were to route your goods through Singapore's port, actually you can save up to 1 week in terms of time needed to get your goods from place A to B. And that has really, earned us that reputation, and has also been a testament of how we are able to, continue to provide reliable operations in the midst of a crisis. Yeah. And then, of course, there is transparency when dealing in Singapore. What you see is what you get. We have very little tolerance for corruption. And I think that is something that is appreciated by countries in the Nordics and Baltics. And the third, on our ability to attract global talent. This nicely dovetails with this point on Singapore, being a livable place for families to relocate, for you to move over as well. Because again, we know that relocation is a deeply personal a decision, right? Whether a place has, allows for your partner to work, whether a place allows for your kids to go to school, is it a safe place to bring up children? These are all very personal considerations that we recognize are important. And that's why we also pay attention to these little details to ensuring that, when companies move to Singapore, their employees also feel safe and excited to move to Singapore as well. So, on safety, on livability, ease of moving around, healthcare, we ensure that we continue to be among the top across these different areas so that we remain attractive as a place to live, work, and play. So yeah, just wanted to recap in terms of how EDB can come into support, really on providing information, connections, as well as potential incentive support for your businesses to set up and grow from Singapore. And I thought here to also note that, I mean, for us, we recognize information asymmetry is one of the friction points for many companies when looking to set up. So we have also put in place and set and work with partners to curate business guides to really level up your level of understanding of the opportunities in Southeast Asia, how to go about setting up your legal entity in Singapore, how to go about hiring. So feel free to check out the QR codes that is appended in the slides. I believe the slides will be circulated after this as well. And of course, happy to keep in touch by way of some of our social channels. So yeah, thank you very much and happy